Hey everyone, it's Chelsea with Savannah in studio, and today I wanted to talk about embodiment theory. This is our topic for August's Red Moon Women's Circle, and you know, this is a really big subject, and I just really wanted to go over some of the basics around what does embodiment mean, what are ways that we can work on living a more embodied, connected life, and just really touch on the surface of it, and then we can expand on it more as the coming months arrive. So I would love to hear in the comments what you think the word embodiment means. Have you heard of this concept before? Do you work with it on a daily basis? Is it something completely new? Is it, do you know the definition of embodiment and how we can apply it to our everyday lives? So just drop that information down in the comments so that we can start this dialogue around the concept of embodiment. For me, most of my work on embodiment theory involves mostly yoga principles, but I also explore it pretty routinely with regards to my shadow work services and my chakra therapy and healing services. For me, the concept of embodiment is this idea of connecting the mind, the body, and the soul in such a way that you are able to sit with yourself in the present moment. Now, that is really a pretty net zero concept. Embodiment could be positive. It could be a difficult and uncomfortable situation. It really depends on where you're coming from, what your background is, and what your experiences up to this point have been. If you have experienced trauma, mental health struggles, physical health struggles, then embodiment can be very uncomfortable and can be almost painful in many ways. I know, from my own experience, I lived very disembodied for many, many decades, especially after having my children, because I didn't want to be connected to the body that I was given in this life. I felt that my body had failed me on multiple occasions, and that I just would rather be this disembodied consciousness that moved through its days, only focusing on academic and intellectual pursuits and not really taking care of my physical body or even worrying about it. And that led to a lot of issues physically, weight, self-harm, not taking care of my general health, but also a lot of mental issues around body image, self-image, and not being able to connect to my own reflection in the mirror and in photographs. And so I've spent the last 5 or 6 years really trying to reconnect my mind and my body and live a more embodied lifestyle, where I do spend more time sitting with my physical form, working through any sensations or emotions or thoughts that are really coming up when I'm alone within my body, trying to stay aware in the present moment, which for myself, I've never lived in the present moment. Like, as far as I can remember, I've always lived in the future and in the past. And so living in the present and experiencing what I feel at any given moment is really intense for me. Being in my body is also a really intense experience because, I feel all the abuse that I went through, and that I did to myself. My body is a lot heavier than I remember when the last time I was connected to it. I'm older, so there's this disconnect between how old my body is and how old my mind thinks my body is. And there's also a lot of physical pain from the weight and the age. So sitting with my body can be very intense, and I'm constantly fighting against the urge to dissociate or numb myself or avoid being in my body because of how uncomfortable it can be. Some of the ways that it really helps me to be present and sit with myself and be okay with sitting myself. I do a lot of yoga. That is one of the ways that I try to be as present as possible for myself. Dancing, and walking, doing both of those physical activities with intention and purpose, that really helps keep me grounded and keep me in the present, where I'm not off thinking about other things. I'm focused on what I'm doing in the moment. I also spend quite a bit of time singing, not only, along to the radio or my playlists, but I sing when I'm walking and moving through the grocery store, and it gives me something to help focus my mind so that I can be more present in whatever it is I'm doing. Meditation, that's always a decent way to work on feeling connected with your body and your mind, and making sure that they feel in alignment. But meditation can also be really difficult. If you are not used to it, it really takes a dedicated practice to be able to do it for long periods of time rather than just a little bit here and there. Any amount of meditation is better than no meditation. So, don't get down on yourself if it feels like you can only do 30 seconds at a time. That's still 30 seconds that you're dedicating to being present and being within yourself. And so I applaud you for even taking that small amount of time to work on your whole health. I wanted to, demonstrate some different yoga poses that can be helpful for embodiment, which I'll do in a second. But, I've talked about some of the ways that it really helps me to get embodied. and feel my whole existence, my whole person. But there are a lot of different ways that you can work on incorporating this embodiment theory into your life. I know a lot of people that journal, and they use mindful intentional writing as a way to sit with themselves and feel what is coming through them at any given point. Cooking can be a very mindful practice because you have to be present and watching the food as you're cooking, making sure that you're putting in the right ingredients and that you're stirring it and following its natural progression. Finally, one of the things that I am starting to do more in my own embodiment practice is I spend a decent amount of time each day just for myself, doing things that I enjoy and that help me focus on being present. And one of the things that I recently started doing was really focusing on sensory activities for myself from a place of meditation. And I'm starting to put together a large collection of sensory activities that I can provide as part of my chakra therapy or my shadow work services as a way to help my clients get into their bodies and focus on what is there already in their bodies that they need to address and bring awareness to. And, some of these different sensory activities include things like painting and drawing and mindfulness techniques that focus on the use of multiple senses. But I also have different things such as meditation board games that can be used to focus on introspective pursuits such as shadow work and chakra healing. And I can't wait to, start rolling these services out to my clients here on my channel. So I know that, we're going through this idea really quickly. I want to show you a couple of ideas for embodied yoga as, that you can kind of experiment with and see how it feels to not only be in the yoga pose, but be mindful and present in a introspective way during the pose. One of my favorite embodied yoga poses is called Taking Up Space, and it is a modified version of Star Pose, and it's just this idea of feeling what it's like to have that expansive energy, to take up space, to be seen, be heard, be felt in your environment. And so we begin by taking a wide-legged stance with our feet in a deep V, little bit of bend in the knees, lifting the arms out to the sides, and really taking up your entire space, whether you're on the mat or not. And you can kind of play with this, seeing if it feels different to have your arms narrowed or have your arms wider out, bending your knees, and just taking up the entire space. Maybe you're moving side to side, really filling up in a three-dimensional circle, and just sitting with yourself, your body, and your mind, and seeing what comes up, what sensations arise, what emotions, what thoughts. Another one of my favorite embodied poses that I tend to do on a regular basis is what I call anger pose. And so, starting in Warrior 2 for your legs, I bring my left hand in toward the top of my chest, and I bring my right hand to the other side of my chest, and I tense my muscles all the way from my hands, all the way down through my legs into my lower body. And I focus on what it feels like to be angry, what I might be holding on to, what I might be angry about at any given time, and just really experiencing any anger that I might be avoiding at that moment. And then releasing it down and adjusting my stance to come out of it and release that tension and that stress, and work on embodying the release of that anger. One of my other favorite embodiment poses is this idea of letting go or surrendering, handing over your problems to the universe for solutions and wisdom and insight. And I like to use the pose of swan dive or moving from exalted mountain into forward fold as a way to move through an embodied release. So beginning with my feet about hip width apart, reaching my arms up overhead, and then swan diving forward folding. Now, there's a lot of different types of hand gestures that you can experiment with. Maybe going into more of a prayer hand gesture, as if you're giving it up to the divine. Or maybe you're just reaching out, releasing it from yourself, sending it back out into the world. Or finally, and most my favorite, is I like to have my palms up when I do it, as if I'm handing it over, offering up that releasing energy for transformation and from help in whatever form comes. So those are some yoga pose ideas for embodiment. Anything can be an embodiment tool. It's really about what do you need to help you get into your body, sit with your body, listen to both your mind and body at the same time in a connected, introspective way, and making sure that you are listening to any sort of discomfort that you may be feeling, whether that is avoidance, numbing, drives, or dissociation. I hope you enjoyed today's Red Moon Women's Circle topic on embodiment theory. I have uploaded the worksheets to my Patreon that go along with today's topic. You can find me at Savannah Wren Studio on Patreon and on Facebook, or you can check out my website, www.savannahwrenstudio.com. Our next workshop is going to be Messy Yoga Mom at the end of the month, and that is going to focus on the productivity scam. That this idea that we always have to be producing, we always have to be going and working and striving, and how that affects our health. So until next time, I'm Chelsea with Savannah Wren Studio, and I will see you online. Have a great rest of your day.